taking all these resources that we use in the forest, and they just come with a truck. You know, they have money, they have a truck, they just come with a truck and like wipe out this type of grass that we use. And you know, we can't, then it's gone. And they were asking for help as a government to help police that, because of course they can't arrest anyone, they don't have the authority. So yeah, so that was the experience. That's why I thought governance was important. And at the same time, sadly, at the same time that we were there looking at this very positive example of shared governance in another park, at one of the checkpoints to enter the park, someone was going home. I think his home was in the park, happened to be in the park, and I can't remember, I don't know exactly what happened, but basically there was well, something happened and the guy got shot because he was just passing, and there's a tense situation between the park authorities and the local.
So here we are getting very concrete. We are dealing with issues of direct relationship with natural resources. Who has the power to do what? Where the conflicts come from? Who has the power to actually resolve those conflicts in terms of authorities and responsibilities? And we are also dealing with very heavy consequences. Some people can die. And it's not something that can be taken lightly. Maybe one or two more examples? Yes, I see something else.
Just an example I thought was interesting is we did a participatory mapping project in the Ouaka National Park in Gabon in 2010. And the main point was that the government had established the protected area system without consultation with the local and indigenous peoples in setting that up. And it had just taken a long time to set up the parks. Ouaka is not really used by outsiders, and it's quite a remote area. And the community was very confused about what their rights were. Where was the buffer? Where was the park? What were they? When were they allowed to fish or hunt? Or it wasn't really clear. And this is a community that's completely natural resource dependent, so there's not like there's other options for them. And the fear of arbitrary arrest and confusion. So we thought our main job was to help create a platform for dialogue between the protected areas authority and the community. In the middle of this, the mayor of the main town for this province and the préfet, the provincial governor, in the meeting they listened, they were very enthusiastic. And then at the end of the meeting they said, what is a national park anyway? And so this is other levels of government had no idea what had happened in their own territory, what it meant, what they were meant to do. So it was a reminder that it wasn't only about the relationship between the protected area authority, which was a national structure, and the indigenous people who did create a dialogue in this process, but there were all these other stakeholders and players, including other parts of government, who didn't even understand what a conservation space was, because no one had taken time with them in that case. So by creating the map and talking about governance and platforms, then different types of actors and rights holders discovered each other, listened to each other. And of course the big issue came up that actually the villagers know a lot about biodiversity in this territory. And at the heart of the whole problem, there were many issues, but one of the big issues was elephants were coming into the villages and damaging the houses and tearing up the fields. And everybody from the government side felt that that was a legitimate concern. But if there wasn't a platform, what was a legitimate issue was not going to get discussed. So without the platform, there was more and more misunderstanding and anger. With the platform, there was a chance for people to find each other and look for solutions together.
So very important points here. You started even talking a key word, which is rights, issues of rights, issues of communications and dialogue, and solutions found together, issues of understanding even of the basics of a situation that touches everybody. Also the consequences of decisions or lack of decisions. If we don't do anything about the elephants, well, some people are going to pay. So sharing, distribution of the costs and benefits of conservation. All these are issues related to governance, and governance solution can provide some answers, and lack of attention to governance can create more and more serious problems. Okay, I see a few more hands. Well, let's try to make it as quick as possible if it is acceptable. I think the richness of examples is coming forth and forth, but okay, who wants to go? Would you pass?
This is a small story. We live in Hawaii, Oahu, which is a very urban island, and we have areas, some smaller areas in the urban, in the midst of the urban areas that are protected. There was one area, Kaena Point, that's along a shore, and the locals like to go dirt biking in there and tore up the terrain and that kind of thing. And my husband was responsible for that area, and what he did was got a local ambassador, someone hired someone to live close to the area, and he was a local, and so he could relate to the people that were tearing up the area. And like 2 years later, it was completely unrecognizable. All the foliage had grown back, and the albatross started to congregate there, and it was a real a place where they thrived and are now protected. And the essence of that was getting a local person who could relate to the people and monitor the area.
That's fabulous. I mean, I found several new words that came to your example that are crucial for governance. Responsibility was the first one, and then relationships, trust, talking to one another, and the fact that successful communication is fundamental to change. All these are important elements of an effective governance situation. I think that Stan has the mic.
Yeah, I wanted to amplify a little bit the situation in the Mount Everest region, which is a national park and World Heritage Site inhabited by indigenous peoples, which introduces some other elements to this conversation we're starting to have. So as I mentioned, at the time the national park was established 35 years ago, the Sherpas already governed the area as a sacred valley with sacred forests, the mountains, streams, lakes, community forest, community rangeland management, the entire area. And this was when the National Park and World Heritage Site were established. It was over the protests of Sherpas who did not want to have it in own community meetings. Their institutions, governance institutions, were totally ignored for the past 35 years. And Sherpas very much want to participate in the governance of that protected area. It's a shared governance arrangement, and they want their ICCAs, the community forests, and other livelihood commons and sacred places also to be recognized under their authority. And they feel this is really important because they feel like for the last 35 years, one of the greatest threats or problems to conservation of the region has been the National Park Administration, which is being managed by the government, and there's been just a series of incidents. Superintendents giving permission for trees to be cut in sacred forests. National Park staff cutting trees in community forests over the objections of the local guardians. National Park giving permission for large-scale outside tourism development over the objections of elected local leaders. You know, time after time, the inability of people to have a real voice in the decisions has affected conservation in the area.
Thank you very much. A few more extremely important elements in governance. The first is the time dimension, history. Where do we come from? The history of the place is so fundamental to governance and culture. Where do we come from and who we are culturally? Then the matter of impositions. You know, through time, history changes and there are things that happen, and imposition of some institutions over prior institutions. This is what actually is the heart of governance. Institutions to relate to natural resources that change through time, and give us a sense of the process in which governance is embedded, in fact. It's very hard to have a static governance situation. There is always a formal process going on. Then participation, corruption, voicing objections and the objections are not received. All elements of what governance is all about. Let me, I'm sorry, make it the last person. Patty, you are here because we still have a chance within the table to tell each other an important story, and then you will choose each table which one to tell. So, would you like to say to everybody, or maybe?
I'll make this because it's an example that's exactly the opposite.
Okay, fantastic. Just go for it because opposite examples are great.
Yeah, because this is in Laos, which acceded to the Ramsar Convention 2 years ago and designated its first 2 Ramsar sites. Laos has 49 ethnic groups, many of whom don't even speak Lao. And so they have no access to statutory law or anything else. When the country acceded to Ramsar, it created a national level Ramsar oversight body, and then the provinces, where the 2 Ramsar sites are located, also created provincial level oversight bodies that include local authorities for these Ramsar sites, but the bodies have never met. They really don't have anything to do yet. What's interesting about Laos is the Ministry of Justice at the level of the central government has recognized that the country's legal regime is not going to function unless it's plural, because they know that most of the country is being run by customary law right now. So what the IUCN country office in Laos is doing, and I'm working with them, we are working with the guy that actually ran the Ministry of Justice project to document customary law in the whole country. And what we're trying to do by interviewing all of the communities in this area, we're trying and learning about, we've also used GIS mapping to document all the sacred forests, all the sacred ponds, all the sacred cemeteries, all the sacred spots around, which are already governed under their own laws. And then try to come up with a way to create regulations just for the Ramsar site that will incorporate the customary law that, in a way that does not create conflicts with the statutory law. And the Ministry of Justice also recognizes that they may have to change some statutory law. So this is the beginning of the process. And what you were talking about was 35 years of a bad process. So no guarantee that it will go well, but at least it's very interesting that there's that kind of recognition on the part of the central government to do something and do it proactively.
Fabulous. I think you brought in 2 other major aspects. One is the one that I actually characterize as a political economy, the fact that there are different legal systems and systems of rules that change through time and have to do with the economy, meaning the production and the use of resources and the power to do so. The customary law and the legal modern situation are typical examples, and at the interface between these situations we find fantastic elements for governance to develop and to thrive and to have problems. And the other one, which is extremely important, and possibly the maps you see down there is going to be one of the key themes of today, is the spatial dimension that governance has to do about. And Nigel also mentioned a couple of times issues of mapping, because maps are ways in which we communicate and we speak about the land and the resources that we have to govern. So it's another dimension of the discourse we are going to have to build together today. Let me now suggest that maybe we consolidate the groups a little bit, because there is a little scattering around the room. You are 4, and here you are 4, you are 5, you are 5, you are 6. Would you like to become, right now you're 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 groups. Would you like to have only 4 tables maybe? It's going to be a bit more productive. If you don't mind, Dave, I know you are a rebellious person by nature, but would you mind joining the group? Yeah? You are going to, maybe, you choose where would you like to go. Initially I thought that we could do groups by region, but Barbara was not so much in agreement, so it's fine. Sorry, would you mind to? Yeah, so that we just move to a group so that, and possibly please be on even numbers. So maybe 2 people should come to this group. Yes, another person, please. So here is 6. How many? Here are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and here you are 3, 4, 5, 6. 3, 4, 5, 6. Just join the group you like. I'm going to ask you now to all be telling each other, because I'm sure every one of you now has a good example of governance issues that may be rich or very simple, negative or positive, that you can share with one another. So just take your next neighbor, and share one issue. One person is going to speak for about 3 minutes, possible, and then the same for the other person. And then each table, please, chooses one case. You decide among yourself where the energy is for the table to express with the others. Is that clear? So please just go do 2 by 2, and then I have a Tibetan bell, which is coming back, I hope, with the... Yes?
Do it like that. How do we know what sense the other?
Sorry, I'm just coming.
Things
Just asking if you do
an
it.
example is Hawaii. We got in Hawaii in the United States.
I just speak to him. The others aren't
Natural
going to know
area reserve.
what we say.
So it's a World Heritage Site. It's not a World Heritage Site a long time ago. Back in the 70s. And it was a natural area reserve. Open processes to do this. State. The area was basically controlled by bee cutters. This was their area, they cut it. Being used was the area, this area is great jungle. No real trails through. So basically it's a biodiversity. Knew that we could not just technology in these areas, fences, so this is basically the area surrounding
of things